So if you're watching this video, you're probably thinking if you should live in Hudson Yards in Manhattan. Hudson Yards has recently, over the past couple years, become like a very famous neighborhood in Manhattan because it has some of the most expensive properties in all of Manhattan, if not the whole world. It's absolutely insane. Now, there has been a lot of new development that has come into Hudson Yards over the past, I would say, about 5 years, and it's kind of been like a new on-the-map neighborhood. Now, because there's so much new development there, it looks very different than pretty much every other neighborhood in Manhattan. So you might recognize the neighborhood from the Vessel, which we'll put a picture up in this video, which is like a very famous like piece of architecture that is in the neighborhood. You might recognize it from the mall. So the Hudson Yards Mall is in the neighborhood, and it's the biggest mall in Manhattan. So because of some of these attractions, Hudson Yards can be touristy because people are coming into the city to see these attractions. So I would say that it's definitely not as touristy as you would probably think. The only time of year that it gets extremely touristy is typically around the holidays, and that's because they do these like crazy light displays in the Hudson Yards Mall where they put up about like, I want to say like last year, this is 2023, so in 2022 they put up at least 1 million lights to light up the whole mall and like surrounding area of the mall. It was absolutely crazy, but gorgeous at the same time. So you will see a lot of people coming in, like tourists coming in for that. So Hudson Yards is definitely not the best neighborhood for transportation, like public transportation. So you have Penn Station, it's not too far from Hudson Yards, but it's not in the neighborhood, and you definitely have to walk east over to 34th Street. And anybody in New York City knows that walking over a few avenues definitely takes some time. So the only train that is directly in the neighborhood of Hudson Yards is the 7 train. So the 7 train goes from the west side to the east side. So Hudson Yards is the furthest west stop, and it's going to stop at Times Square, Fifth Avenue, Grand Central, and then it's going to go straight into Queens. So you're going to have to get off one of those other stops and transfer to another train if you need to get up or downtown. That's definitely something that is not convenient about that neighborhood in the slightest. Typically, I would recommend if you live in that neighborhood, you're probably going to be better off walking to Penn Station, where you can catch pretty much every train, or walking to Chelsea. Depending on where you live in the neighborhood, that might be your best bet as well. If you just walk over to a train there, if you are probably going downtown, that would probably be your best bet. That's probably the biggest complaint people have living in the neighborhood, is that the public transportation is just not good because there's just really no other options. You're going to have to do a lot of walking in that neighborhood. So if you are commuting to other neighborhoods in Manhattan, like on a daily basis, it's definitely not going to be the most convenient option for you. Hudson Yards is a waterfront neighborhood, so it's basically right off the West Side Highway, so you can easily walk to the waterfront in a few minutes from pretty much anywhere in the neighborhood. So the waterfront on the west side is absolutely gorgeous. They've really developed it over the past decade. So if you're the type of person who likes to take like a casual walk or even run in the morning, West Side waterfront is like the perfect area for that. It's definitely a little bit better than the East Side waterfront. The neighborhood is definitely filled with really, really great dining options. However, there's not a lot of casual dining. I would say that the Hudson Yards Mall specifically has recently been better about opening up some like fast casual spots because there are people who work there like during the day in office buildings. Because of that, they've definitely been trying to add some more like fast casual options to kind of cater to that crowd. But a lot of the restaurants that you're going to see in the neighborhood are definitely like very pricey, but some of the best dining that you're going to see in Manhattan. At least I do love spending time in Hudson Yards for like their dining scene. They do have some really, really great options there. So you have the Hudson Yards Mall, but then you also have the Manhattan West development that has opened in the past few years as well. Between those two, there's incredible dining options. And you can even find some spots to just get like a casual cocktail like after work if you're looking to meet up with somebody. But at the same time, they're going to be pricey. So there's no nightlife in Hudson Yards. Like that's definitely not going to be a nightlife neighborhood. It is near some other neighborhoods that has more of like a late night scene. So you can go to Hell's Kitchen, which is going to be the neighborhood that's to the north of Hudson Yards. And Hell's Kitchen is going to have more of like a late night dining bar scene, I would say. It's still very casual. Chelsea also is going to have a late night scene with some nightlife as well. So that's the neighborhood directly south. You have that option as well. So you are within walking distance of other neighborhoods that have more of a late night scene. However, it's going to be a little bit of a walk, I would say, from Hudson Yards, depending on where you are in the neighborhood. So when it comes to apartments, the whole neighborhood is pretty much filled with new construction. So there were some older developments where the newer developments were built around, so they are mixed in a little bit, but for the most part, I would say like 75% of inventory or more is going to be new developments here. And they're going to be pricey new developments. Whether you're renting or buying something, it's all pricey in Hudson Yards for sure. It's also because new developments are pretty rare in Manhattan as a whole. Like there aren't a ton of new developments, especially if you're comparing it to like other cities around the world where there's tons of new development going on. So because it's not as common in Manhattan, you're going to pay a price for it. So if you're set on new development and you have the budget to go along with it, then this is definitely going to be a neighborhood that you want to look at because there's so many options here. However, if that's not important to you at all, or if you want more of like the charming old school feel of Manhattan, this is definitely not the neighborhood for you. I like to make this comparison to people when they're considering Hudson Yards. If you are the type of person who likes the West Village, specifically another neighborhood randomly in New York City, but if you like the West Village for its charming streets and its community feel, if you love like that type of neighborhood, the West Village, you're not gonna like Hudson Yards. It's completely polar opposite neighborhoods, both on the west side, but very, very different. Hudson Yards feels like new, commercial. It's more like sterile, I would say. And I do like Hudson Yards. I'm not talking down on Hudson Yards at all, but it has a very, very different than like a community New York City vibe. Those two neighborhoods are very, very different from each other. That's like the comparison I like to make, because sometimes if people are familiar with that neighborhood, they can easily understand what I'm saying to them. So if you're looking for new and you don't really care about commuting to other neighborhoods, Hudson Yards could be a really good option for you. Now, I hope this helped you figure out if you should live in Hudson Yards or not. Now, I would love to know, would you ever live in the Hudson Yards neighborhood? As always, I love hearing from you guys.